Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided his horse along the winding trail beside the Colorado River. The summer sun blazed overhead, and the rushing water below looked inviting after 3 days of hard riding. He was heading to Santa Fe to deliver supplies, but the heat was becoming unbearable. As he rounded a bend, a splash echoed from the river below. Marcus pulled his horse to a stop and listened carefully. Another splash, followed by what sounded like someone calling for help. He dismounted quickly and scrambled down the rocky slope toward the water's edge. The sight that greeted him took his breath away. A woman was struggling in the fast-moving current, her long black hair streaming behind her as the river carried her downstream. But this wasn't just any woman. She was enormous, standing at least 7 feet tall even as she fought against the rushing water. Her traditional Apache dress clung to her powerful frame as she battled the current. Marcus didn't hesitate. He kicked off his boots and dove into the cold river. The current immediately grabbed him, but years of swimming in mountain streams had made him strong in the water. He fought his way toward the struggling woman, his arms burning with effort. When he reached her, she was barely keeping her head above water. Her dark eyes were wide with fear and she was gasping for breath. Marcus grabbed her arm, surprised by the solid muscle beneath his grip. "I've got you," he shouted over the roar of the water. "Don't fight me, let me help you to shore." The woman looked at him with surprise. She had expected to die in the river, and here was a white man risking his life to save her. She nodded and stopped struggling, allowing Marcus to guide her toward the riverbank. The current was stronger than Marcus had expected. Even with his swimming skills, pulling the large woman to safety took every ounce of his strength. His lungs burned as he fought against the water, using rocks and fallen branches to pull them closer to shore. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, Marcus managed to get them both to shallow water near the bank. They collapsed on the rocky shore, both gasping for air. The woman coughed up river water while Marcus lay on his back, his chest heaving. When he could breathe normally again, Marcus sat up and looked at the woman he had saved. She was even more impressive on dry land. Her height was matched by broad shoulders and strong arms that spoke of a life of hard work. Her face was beautiful despite her exhaustion, with high cheekbones and intelligent dark eyes that studied him carefully. "Are you hurt?" Marcus asked, checking her for injuries. She shook her head slowly, still catching her breath. When she finally spoke, her English was clear but accented with the musical tones of her native language. "You saved my life," she said simply. "I am Ayanna, daughter of Chief Nalnish of the White Mountain Apache. Why did you risk yourself for me?" Marcus shrugged, wringing water from his shirt. "Anyone would have done the same." Ayanna studied his face carefully. In her experience, white men did not risk their lives for Apache women. Most would have ridden past without a second thought. This man was different. "Not anyone," she said quietly. "You could have died in that river. The current is stronger than it looks." Marcus nodded, realizing how close they had both come to drowning. His horse whinnied from the trail above, reminding him of his interrupted journey. "What happened?" he asked. "How did you end up in the river?" Ayanna's face darkened. "My horse was spooked by a rattlesnake. She threw me into the water and ran off. I have been swimming for a long time before you found me." Marcus looked around and spotted Ayanna's horse grazing peacefully about 100 yards upstream, apparently having calmed down after throwing its rider. He whistled, and the animal lifted its head. "There's your horse," he said, pointing. Ayanna followed his gaze and sighed with relief. "Good. My father will be worried if I do not return by sunset." Marcus helped her to her feet, impressed again by her size and strength. Even soaking wet and exhausted, she moved with the grace of a natural athlete. "Where is your camp?" he asked. 2 miles upstream," Ayanna replied, "near the big bend where the cottonwoods grow thick." Marcus knew the area. It was traditional Apache territory, and he had always been careful to avoid it during his travels. The Apache were known for being suspicious of outsiders, and with good reason given the conflicts of recent years. "I'll ride with you to make sure you get back safely," Marcus offered. Ayanna looked surprised. "That is not necessary. You have already done enough." I insist, Marcus said firmly. That river took a lot out of both of us. I want to make sure you make it home. As they climbed back up to the trail, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what he was getting himself into. Riding into an Apache camp was dangerous for any white man, even one who had just saved the chief's daughter. But something about Ayanna made him want to ensure her safety, even if it meant facing her people. The afternoon sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon as they mounted their horses. Marcus looked at the powerful woman beside him and realized his simple supply run to Santa Fe had just become much more complicated. The ride to the Apache camp was tense and quiet. Marcus kept glancing at Ayanna, who rode with the easy confidence of someone born in the saddle. Despite her recent ordeal in the river, she sat straight and alert on her horse, scanning the landscape with practiced eyes. As they approached the bend in the river where cottonwood trees grew thick, Marcus began to see signs of the camp. Smoke rose from several cooking fires and the sound of voices carried on the evening breeze. His stomach tightened with nervousness. "Are you certain about this?" Ayanna asked, noticing his tension. "My people may not welcome a white man, even one who saved my life." Marcus straightened in his saddle. "I said I would see you safely home, and I meant it." Ayanna nodded slowly, respect growing in her dark eyes. She had misjudged white men before, but this one seemed different. He kept his word even when it put him in danger. The first Apache warrior they encountered was a young man about Marcus's age, carrying a rifle and wearing traditional clothing mixed with some pieces of white man's clothing. His eyes widened when he saw Ayanna riding beside a stranger. "Ayanna!" the warrior called out in Apache. "Where have you been? Your father has been worried sick," Ayanna replied quickly in her native language, gesturing toward Marcus. The warrior's expression changed from concern to suspicion as he looked at the white man. "He says his name is Keme," Ayanna told Marcus. "He is my cousin. I told him you saved me from drowning." Keme approached Marcus's horse carefully, his rifle ready but not aimed. He spoke to Ayanna again in rapid Apache. "He wants to know why you helped me," Ayanna translated. "Tell him because it was the right thing to do," Marcus replied simply. When Ayanna translated this, Keme's expression softened slightly, but he remained cautious. He gestured for them to follow him toward the main camp. As they rode between the trees, Marcus saw the full extent of the Apache settlement. There were at least 30 lodges scattered among the cottonwoods, with cook fires and drying racks for meat and hides. Children played near the water while women worked at various tasks. Warriors sat in groups talking and checking their weapons. When the camp inhabitants saw Marcus, activity stopped. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Children stopped playing and stared. Women gathered their little ones closer. Warriors reached for their weapons. Marcus felt dozens of eyes upon him as they rode through the camp. He kept his hands visible and his movements slow and unthreatening. Beside him, Ayanna called out greetings to various people, explaining his presence. At the center of the camp stood the largest lodge, decorated with painted symbols and eagle feathers. An older man emerged from this lodge, and Marcus immediately knew he was looking at Chief Nalnish. The resemblance to Ayanna was unmistakable. The same height, the same powerful build, the same intelligent dark eyes. But where Ayanna was beautiful, her father was intimidating. Scars on his arms and face told of many battles, and his bearing commanded instant respect. Chief Nalnish's eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made the young man's skin crawl. Then the chief looked at his daughter, and his stern expression melted into relief and concern. Ayanna dismounted and ran to her father, speaking rapidly in Apache. Marcus couldn't understand the words, but her gestures toward the river and then toward him made the story clear. As she spoke, Chief Nalnish's eyes returned to Marcus, but now they held curiosity rather than hostility. When Ayanna finished her account, Chief Nalnish approached Marcus's horse. The white man dismounted respectfully and stood facing the Apache leader. "My daughter tells me you saved her life," Chief Nalnish said in heavily accented but clear English. "She says you risked drowning to pull her from the river. Any decent person would have done the same," Marcus replied, meeting the chief's gaze steadily. Chief Nalnish studied him for a long moment. Around them, the camp had grown completely silent. Even the children had stopped whispering. Perhaps, the chief said finally. But in my experience, white men do not risk their lives for Apache women. They are more likely to watch us drown. Marcus felt the weight of history in those words, years of conflict, broken treaties, and mutual distrust. He couldn't deny the truth of what the chief said. I'm not like those men, Marcus said quietly. No, Chief Nalnish agreed after another long pause. You are not. My daughter is precious to me. She is my only child, and without her, my line would end. You have given me back everything that matters. The chief turned and spoke to the gathered crowd in Apache. His words caused a murmur to ripple through the camp. Some nodded approvingly, while others looked skeptical. I have told my people what you have done, Chief Nalnish explained to Marcus. You will eat with us tonight as our honored guest. Tomorrow we will speak of how I can repay this debt. Marcus shook his head. That's not necessary, Chief. I don't want anything in return. But I do, Chief Nalnish said firmly. Among my people, a debt of honor must be repaid. You will stay tonight and we will feast in your honor. Marcus realized he had no choice in the matter. To refuse would be insulting, and he was already in a delicate situation. Thank you for your hospitality, he said with a slight bow. Ayanna smiled at him, the first real smile he had seen from her since the rescue. Come, she said. I will show you where you can wash and rest. The women will prepare special food for tonight's feast. As Marcus followed Ayanna through the camp, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a dramatic turn. He had come west seeking adventure and opportunity, but he had never imagined anything like this. Saving the Apache chief's daughter was already more adventure than he had bargained for, and something told him this was only the beginning. That evening, the Apache camp came alive with preparation for the feast. Marcus had been given a place to wash and change clothes near the river, guarded respectfully but carefully by two young warriors. When he returned to the main camp, he was amazed by the transformation. A large fire had been built in the center of the camp with logs arranged in a circle for seating. The smell of roasting meat filled the air, along with the aroma of corn cakes and wild herbs. Women moved efficiently around the cooking areas, while men tuned drums and prepared for the evening's festivities. Ayanna had changed from her wet clothes into a beautiful traditional dress made of soft deerskin and decorated with beadwork and colorful ribbons. Her long black hair, now dry, was braided with silver ornaments that caught the firelight. Marcus was struck again by her beauty and presence. You look much better after washing the river water away, she said with a slight smile as she approached him. So do you, Marcus replied, then felt himself blush at his boldness. Ayanna's smile widened. Come. My father wishes to speak with you before the feast begins. She led him to where Chief Nalnish sat with several other older men, all wearing their finest ceremonial clothing. The chief gestured for Marcus to sit across from him. These are my advisors and the elders of our band, Chief Nalnish explained. I wanted them to meet the man who saved my daughter. Marcus nodded respectfully to each man as they were introduced. Their names were difficult for him to pronounce, but he tried his best, earning approving nods for his effort. Tell us about yourself, Chief Nalnish said. Where do you come from and what brings you to our territory? Marcus explained that he was from Missouri, working as a trader and supplier between the growing settlements. He had been on his way to Santa Fe when he heard Ayanna's cries for help. You travel alone? Asked one of the elders, an ancient man with silver hair. That is dangerous in these lands. I've been careful to avoid trouble, Marcus replied. I try to be respectful of all people I encounter. Yet you did not avoid helping my daughter, Chief Nalnish observed. Even though it meant entering Apache territory. Marcus met the chief's gaze. Some things are more important than avoiding trouble. The elders murmured among themselves in Apache. Marcus caught Ayanna watching him from across the fire, and she gave him an encouraging nod. As the sun set completely, drums began to beat, and the feast officially started. Marcus was seated in a place of honor next to Chief Nalnish, with Ayana on his other side. The food was unlike anything he had ever tasted: venison seasoned with wild herbs, corn prepared in various ways, and fresh fish from the river. Warriors told stories of hunts and battles, while women sang traditional songs. Children darted between the adults, their laughter mixing with the drumbeats. Marcus found himself relaxing despite his unusual circumstances. "Do you enjoy our celebration?" Ayana asked during a quiet moment. "It's beautiful," Marcus replied. "Honestly, your people know how to celebrate life." "We celebrate many things tonight," she said. "My safe return, your brave rescue, and the friendship between our peoples, even if it is just between you and us." As the evening progressed, Marcus noticed Chief Nalnish watching him carefully, especially when he interacted with Ayana. The eye. Chief seemed to be evaluating something, weighing decisions in his mind. Near midnight, when most of the children had fallen asleep and the older people had retired to their lodges, Chief Nalnish stood and called for attention. The remaining celebrants gathered around the fire. "Tonight we honor Marcus, the white man who risked his life to save my daughter," the chief announced in both Apache and English. "Among our people, such a debt cannot be repaid with simple thanks or gifts." Marcus felt a chill of apprehension. He had hoped the feast would be enough to satisfy Apache custom. "I have thought much about this," Chief Nalnish continued. "How does a father repay a man who has given him back his most precious treasure?" The camp had grown completely silent except for the crackling of the fire. "There is only one gift worthy of such a deed," the chief said, his eyes fixed on Marcus. "I offer you my daughter's hand in marriage." Gasps echoed around the fire. Some sounded pleased, others shocked. Marcus felt his heart stop beating for a moment. "Father," Ayana exclaimed, rising to her feet. Her face showed complete surprise. "Chief." Nalnish held up his hand for silence. "Ayana is 25 summers old and has refused every warrior who has asked for her. She says none are worthy of her strength and spirit. But this man has proven his courage and honor. He would be a good husband for her and a good son for me." Marcus's mind raced. Marriage to Ayana would mean giving up his life as a traitor, living permanently with the Apache, learning their ways completely. It would mean being cut off from the white world forever. But as he looked at Ayana, standing proud and beautiful in the firelight, he felt something stir in his chest that he had never experienced before. She was unlike any woman he had ever known, strong, intelligent, brave, and beautiful beyond measure. "What does Ayana think of this?" Marcus asked, finding his voice. All eyes turned to the chief's daughter. Her face was unreadable as she looked from her father to Marcus and back again. "I think," she said slowly, "that this decision affects my life as much as anyone's. I should have a voice in it." Chief Nalnish nodded approvingly. "Speak, my daughter. What is your will?" Ayana looked directly at Marcus. "You saved my life today, and I'm grateful. You have shown honor and courage. But marriage is not a reward to be given or a debt to be paid. It should be a choice made by two people who wish to share their lives." She paused, her dark eyes never leaving his face. "I would be willing to consider such a choice," she said finally, "but only if it is freely made by both of us, not commanded by duty or obligation." The camp erupted in surprised murmurs. This was not the response anyone had expected. The morning after the feast, Marcus woke before dawn in the guest lodge where he had been given shelter for the night. His mind had barely allowed him sleep as he wrestled with Chief Nalnish's unexpected proposal. Marriage to Ayana would change everything about his life, but turning down the offer might insult the Apache and put him in danger. He stepped outside into the cool morning air and found Ayana already awake, sitting by the dying embers of the main fire. She looked up as he approached. "You could not sleep either," she observed. Marcus sat down across from her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "Your father's offer caught me off guard. I never expected anything like that." "Nor did I," Ayana admitted. "My father is a good man, but sometimes he makes decisions without consulting those most affected by them." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sun begin to rise over the mountains. Other camp members were starting to stir, beginning their daily routines. "Tell me about your life," Ayanna said suddenly. "What would you be giving up if you stayed here?" Marcus considered her question carefully. "I've been traveling and trading for 3 years now. I have no wife, no children, no permanent home. My parents died of fever when I was young, and I have no other family. I suppose I would be giving up my freedom to roam where I choose." "And what would you gain?" Marcus looked at her, taking in her strong profile and the way the morning light played across her features. "I don't know yet. I barely know you despite what happened yesterday." Ayanna nodded approvingly. An honest answer. Most men would speak of love at first sight or make grand romantic speeches to win favor. "I'm not most men, apparently," Marcus said with a slight smile. "No, you are not," Ayanna agreed. "That is why I did not refuse my father's offer outright." "You intrigue me, Marcus Thompson." Chief Nelnish emerged from his lodge and approached them, his expression serious but not unfriendly. "You both rise early," he observed, settling down beside the fire. "Have you given thought to my proposal?" "We have spoken of it," Ayanna replied diplomatically. "But father, you ask us to make a decision that will affect our entire lives based on one day of knowing each other." Chief Nelnish nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are right, my daughter. What do you suggest?" Ayanna glanced at Marcus before speaking. "Let him stay with us for 1 moon. Let us learn each other's ways and see if we are truly compatible. At the end of that time, if we both agree, the marriage can proceed. If not, Marcus can leave with our blessing and the debt will be considered paid through his willingness to consider the offer." Marcus felt relief wash over him. This seemed like a reasonable compromise. "And you agree to this?" Chief Nelnish asked Marcus. "I do," Marcus replied. "It's fair to both of us." The chief was quiet for a long moment, studying both young people. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. You will stay with us for 1 moon. You will learn our ways and contribute to our community. Ayanna will teach you what you need to know. At the end of that time, you will both give me your decision." As word of the arrangement spread through the camp, Marcus found himself the center of curious attention. Some Apache seemed pleased by the idea of a white man joining their community, while others remained suspicious. The young warriors, especially, watched him with careful eyes. Kame, Ayanna's cousin, approached him later that morning as Marcus was helping repair a fishing net. "You know that many of our young men wanted to marry Ayanna," Kame said without preamble. "I assumed as much," Marcus replied, not looking up from his work. "She's an exceptional woman." "They will not be happy about this arrangement," Kame warned. "Some may try to make trouble for you." Marcus finally looked up at the Apache warrior. "I didn't ask for this situation, Kame. I just saved a drowning woman. But I won't back down from challenges either." Kame studied Marcus for a moment, then nodded approvingly. "Good. You will need that attitude here." Over the following days, Marcus threw himself into learning Apache ways. Ayanna proved to be a patient teacher, showing him how to track animals, identify edible plants, and understand the complex social structure of the band. In return, Marcus shared stories of the outside world and taught some Apache children basic English words. The work was hard but satisfying. Marcus had always been strong, but life with the Apache demanded different skills than trading and traveling. He learned to move quietly through the forest, to read signs in the landscape that he had never noticed before, and to think like a hunter rather than a merchant. What surprised him most was how much he enjoyed the communal life of the Apache camp. After years of traveling alone, the constant companionship and shared responsibilities felt comforting rather than restrictive. Ayanna, meanwhile, proved to be more complex and interesting than Marcus had initially realized. She was not just physically strong but also highly intelligent, with deep knowledge of Apache traditions and customs. She could track a deer for miles, negotiate disputes between camp members, and tell stories that kept children spellbound for hours. But she was also stubborn and quick-tempered when challenged. More than once, Marcus witnessed her argue fiercely with her father or other tribal leaders when she disagreed with their decisions. She never backed down from what she believed was right, even when it would have been easier to remain silent. "You're not like any woman I've ever known," Marcus told her one evening as they sat by the river where he had first saved her. Apache women are different from white women, Ayanna replied. We are expected to be strong and speak our minds. A weak woman cannot survive the hardships of our life. It's not just that, Marcus said. You have a strength that comes from inside, not just from your body. Ayanna looked at him curiously. Is that good or bad in your opinion? Marcus smiled. It's one of the things I admire most about you. As the days passed, Marcus found himself looking forward to his time with Ayanna more and more. Their conversations ranged from practical matters like hunting and survival to deeper topics about family, dreams, and beliefs. Despite their different backgrounds, they discovered many shared values and compatible ways of thinking. But the month was passing quickly, and Marcus knew that soon he would have to make the most important decision of his life. 3 weeks into his stay with the Apache, Marcus faced his first real test. A group of young Apache warriors, led by a man named Natan, had been watching him with growing resentment. Natan was considered one of the finest warriors in the band and had been courting Ayanna for 2 years without success. The confrontation came during a community hunt for elk that had been spotted in the high meadows. Marcus had been included in the hunting party as part of his integration into Apache life. As the hunters tracked their prey through difficult mountain terrain, Natan began making pointed comments about the white man's tracking abilities. The elk will smell him coming from a mile away, Natan said loudly enough for others to hear. White men make too much noise in the forest. Marcus ignored the comment and continued following the tracks that Ayanna had taught him to read. But Natan wasn't finished. Perhaps he should go back to camp with the women and children, Natan suggested. This hunt is for real warriors. Several younger warriors laughed, but Marcus noticed that the older, more experienced hunters looked uncomfortable with Natan's behavior. Ayanna, who was also part of the hunting party, turned to face Natan with flashing eyes. Marcus has proven himself capable. He saved my life when you were nowhere to be found. Anyone can jump in a river, Natan replied dismissively. But can he hunt like an Apache? Can he provide for a family? Can he protect a wife in battle? That's enough, said Keme, stepping between them. We are here to hunt elk, not to argue. But Natan wasn't ready to let the matter drop. I propose a test, he announced. Let the white man prove he deserves to be considered for marriage to our chief's daughter. Let us see who can track and kill the largest elk. Marcus felt every eye in the hunting party upon him. He could back down and lose face, or accept the challenge and risk failure in front of Ayanna and the others. I accept, Marcus said quietly. Ayanna looked worried, but she nodded encouragingly. The hunting party split into 2 groups, those following Natan and those with Marcus. Ayanna chose to go with her cousin Keme and remained neutral. The hunt became a grueling test of endurance and skill. Both men pushed themselves and their followers hard through the mountain terrain. Marcus used everything Ayanna had taught him, moving as quietly as possible and reading the subtle signs that revealed the elk's passage. By midday, both groups had located different elk herds. Natan's group had found a herd with several large bulls, while Marcus's group was tracking a smaller group that included one enormous old bull with an impressive rack of antlers. The actual hunt required patience and teamwork. Marcus had to prove he could not only track the animal, but also coordinate with the other hunters to position themselves for a successful kill. The Apache way of hunting was different from what he had learned growing up, requiring more cooperation and less individual showmanship. When the moment came, Marcus's arrow flew true, striking the large bull cleanly. The animal dropped after a short chase, and the other hunters whooped in appreciation. It was indeed a magnificent elk, larger than any in Natan's kill. But when the hunting parties reunited that evening, Natan was far from gracious in defeat. Luck, he said dismissively. Any fool can get lucky once. It wasn't luck, said one of the older hunters who had been with Marcus. He showed real skill and patience. He hunted like an Apache. The success in the hunt earned Marcus respect from many, in the camp, but it also deepened Natan's resentment. Over the following days, the angry warrior continued to create problems, questioning Marcus's presence at tribal meetings and making snide comments about white men stealing Apache women. The situation came to a head when Natan publicly challenged Marcus to a fight. "If he wants to marry into our tribe, let him prove he can protect an Apache wife," Natan declared during an evening gathering. "Let him face me in combat." Chief Nalnish frowned deeply. "Natan, this is not our way. Marcus is our guest." "A guest who wants to become family," Natan insisted. "If he is too cowardly to fight for what he claims to want, then he is not worthy of Ayanna." Marcus stood slowly, knowing he was being maneuvered into a situation where he had no good options. If he refused to fight, he would be seen as weak. If he fought and lost, his chances with Ayanna would be over. But if he fought and won, he might make an enemy for life. "I don't want to fight you, Natan," Marcus said calmly. "We should be able to settle our differences without violence." "Spoken like a coward," Natan sneered. That was too much. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. "If you insist on this course," Marcus said finally, "then I accept your challenge. But I choose the terms. We fight until first blood only, not to the death. And we fight with our hands, not with weapons." Natan had expected Marcus to choose knives or tomahawks, where his Apache training would give him a significant advantage. Hand-to-hand combat was more even ground. "Agreed," Natan said after a moment's hesitation. A fighting circle was formed with the entire camp gathering to watch. Ayanna looked deeply troubled as she took her place beside her father. "Stop this," she urged Chief Nalnish. "This proves nothing except who is stronger. Sometimes strength matters." Her father replied sadly. "If Marcus cannot defend himself against Natan, how can he defend you against our enemies?" The fight, when it began, was brutal and quick. Natan was skilled and aggressive, but Marcus had learned to fight in frontier towns where tavern brawls were common. He was also motivated by more than just pride. He was fighting for his future with Ayanna. When Natan rushed him, Marcus sidestepped and used the Apache's momentum against him, sending him tumbling to the ground. Before Natan could recover, Marcus was on him, pinning him down with a chokehold that cut off his air supply. "Yield," Marcus said through gritted teeth. But Natan was too proud to give up. He struggled desperately until Marcus tightened his hold and the warrior finally passed out from lack of air. When Natan came to a few moments later, he was defeated and humiliated. He looked up at Marcus with hatred in his eyes. "This isn't over," he whispered. Marcus helped him to his feet, showing respect even in victory. "It is if you want it to be. I have no quarrel with you beyond this." But looking into Natan's eyes, Marcus knew he had made a dangerous enemy. The test had been passed, but at a cost that might prove significant in the future. The month was nearly over when Ayanna asked Marcus to walk with her to a special place she wanted to show him. They climbed high into the mountains above the camp until they reached a hidden valley filled with wildflowers and fed by a crystal-clear spring. "This is my thinking place," Ayanna explained as they sat on a flat rock overlooking the valley. "I come here when I need to make difficult decisions." Marcus understood why she had brought him here. Tomorrow they would have to give Chief Nalnish their answer about the marriage proposal. "What are you thinking?" he asked gently. Ayanna was quiet for a long moment, picking wildflowers and weaving them into a small bouquet. "I am thinking about the life I always imagined for myself and how different it is from what I might choose now." "Tell me about that life." "I always thought I would marry a great Apache warrior," she said. "Someone who had proven himself in many battles, who knew our ways from birth, who could lead our people when my father grew old." Marcus felt his heart sink. "That makes sense. It's what your father would want too." "Yes, it is what he would want," Ayanna agreed. "But it is not what I want, not anymore." She turned to face him fully, her dark eyes serious and searching. "This month has shown me something I did not expect. You have learned our ways quickly, but more than that, you have brought new ideas to our people. When you suggested the new way to preserve meat using salt, our elders listened. When you showed the children how to make tools from metal scraps you carried, they learned eagerly. You bridged two worlds in a way that could benefit our people. Marcus felt hope stirring in his chest, but he remained cautious. And what about your personal feelings? Marriage should be about more than what benefits the tribe. Ayanna smiled, the first truly warm smile he had seen from her since they met. My personal feelings surprise me most of all. I have watched you these past weeks, Marcus Thompson. I have seen your kindness to our children, your respect for our elders, your willingness to work hard even at tasks that are unfamiliar to you. I have seen you stand up to Natan not from pride, but to protect your place here with us. She reached out and took his hand, her touch sending warmth through his arm. I have come to care for you in ways I did not expect. When I think of my future now, I see you in it. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. I feel the same way. This month has been the happiest of my life. Not just because of you, though you are a big part of it. I feel like I belong here in a way I never belonged anywhere else. Then what is your answer? Ayanna asked softly. I want to marry you, Marcus said without hesitation. I want to make my life here with your people. I want to learn everything. You can teach me and contribute everything I can to this community. Ayanna's smile grew even brighter. And I want to marry you. I want to build a life that honors both of our backgrounds and create something new. They sealed their decision with their first kiss as the sun set over the hidden valley, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple. When they returned to camp that evening, Chief Nalnish was waiting for them by the main fire. He took one look at their joined hands and their expressions and nodded approvingly. I see you have made your decision, he said. We have, Ayanna replied. We wish to marry. The chief's stern expression melted into a rare smile. I am pleased. I have watched you both this month, and I believe you will be good for each other and for our people. He stood and called for the attention of the camp. My daughter and Marcus have decided to marry. We will hold the ceremony in 3 days' time. The announcement brought mixed reactions from the camp. Most people cheered and offered congratulations, but Marcus noticed that Natan and a few of his supporters looked displeased. Marcus made a mental note to stay alert for any trouble. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Apache weddings were complex affairs involving many rituals and traditions that Marcus had to learn quickly. Ayanna's female relatives took charge of educating him about his responsibilities as a husband in Apache society. You must understand, explained an elderly aunt, that among our people the woman owns the home and the children belong to her clan. Your role is to provide and protect, but also to support your wife's decisions about family matters. This was very different from white society, where men typically controlled household decisions. But Marcus found the Apache way appealing. He had seen Ayanna's wisdom and strength, and he trusted her judgment. The wedding ceremony itself was beautiful and meaningful. It began at sunrise with a blessing from the tribal medicine man, who painted sacred symbols on both Marcus and Ayanna's faces. The couple exchanged vows in both English and Apache, promising to honor each other's traditions while building something new together. Chief Nalnish performed the final ritual, binding their hands together with a cord made from buffalo hide while speaking ancient words that had joined Apache couples for generations. You are now one people, he declared. What affects one affects both. You will face joy and sorrow, plenty and hardship, peace and conflict together. May your union strengthen both your lives and our community. The celebration that followed lasted 2 days. Warriors performed traditional dances. Elders told stories of famous couples from Apache history, and the entire community feasted on the finest foods they could provide. But the most meaningful moment for Marcus came when several of the tribal elders approached him privately. We have decided to offer you a new name, said the oldest among them. In our tradition, when someone joins our people through marriage, they may take an Apache name that reflects their character and deeds. What name do you suggest? Marcus asked, honored by the gesture. Tsetaji, the elder replied. It means brave heart who saves others. It honors both your rescue of Ayana and your courage in choosing to join our people. Marcus accepted the name gratefully, understanding that it represented his full acceptance into the Apache community. As the celebration wound down, and the newlyweds prepared to move into their own lodge, Ayana took Marcus aside. "Are you certain you will not regret giving up your old life?" she asked. "You can never go back to being just a white trader now." Marcus looked around the camp that was now his home, at the people who had become his family, and at the remarkable woman who was now his wife. "I'm not giving up my old life," he said, pulling her close. "I'm beginning my real life. Everything before this was just preparation for finding you and finding my place here." Ayana smiled and kissed him softly. "Then welcome home, Chetaji. Welcome to your new life." As they walked toward their lodge under a canopy of stars, Marcus reflected on the strange turn his life had taken. He had set out for Santa Fe as a simple trader and ended up saving a drowning woman who would become his wife. Chief Nalnish's reward had indeed surprised him, but not in the way he could have ever imagined. Sometimes the most unexpected gifts turn out to be exactly what we needed, even when we didn't know we needed them. Marcus had found not just a wife, but a home, a family, and a purpose that fulfilled him in ways his solitary life never could. The river that had nearly claimed Ayana's life had instead brought them together and changed both their destinies, forever. It was, Marcus thought as he fell asleep beside his new wife, the most surprising and wonderful reward any man could receive.